Anyway, and welcome to Conversations with Clubmate. And tonight we're going to have a conversation with Ryan Shaw from Embryo Angling Habitats. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much. I'll obviously need to up my game, didn't I? If this is what did you say? A poor attendance usually for one of yours. But
yeah, well, obviously it's a bit different than our usual niche. Being, as I kind of spoke to you earlier, Clubmate's got this kind of reputation for managing angling clubs more than fisheries, which is a bit of a misguiding impression, really, because I think sometimes our platform probably works easier for syndicates than it does for clubs, because clubs have got really complex ways of working, whereas syndicates, and I mean, from your model, it's reasonably straightforward. There are very little in terms of price options and very little in terms of ways of working. Everyone pretty much is the same thing, as opposed to angling clubs, which I think our record at the moment is 79 different types of membership at one club. And obviously I think you've got like two. So yeah, you've got two when one of them's not paid. You've paid, you've not paid, and that's about the end of your membership options. Anyway, so we'll have a conversation tonight about Embryo Angling Habitats and about you and your role at Embryo Angling Habitats, and about how you've come into Clubmate and how you came into that and why, and what the challenges are, and hopefully some of the ones we've solved, and hopefully explore your use of the platform to kind of let people know what it's like. So first of all, Ryan Shaw. Let's talk about Ryan Shaw first. So tell us about Ryan Shaw and his fishing and how you came to work for Embryo Angling Habitats.
So it's a bit of I suppose we've all got a bit of a funny story behind it. Grew up in Essex, right near the Corder office, actually. So literally the office has always been sort of 15-20 minutes down the road.
Don't tell me you just stood outside the gate shouting until they gave you a job.
No, I didn't. No, but it was, I did apply as a youngster. It was just always a dream to go into that sort of industry, really. I remember throughout college, I was constantly sending in emails to say, look, is there anything going, blah blah blah, and then it got past that stage, really, and I thought, well, I'm actually going to have to look for a different sort of career then, I guess. So I went off to uni. Studied architecture. Really enjoyed it, actually. I can't say anything bad about it. It just so happens that my contract in London was finishing, and then there was an opportunity in at Embryo, and I sort of went for it 7 or 8 years ago, and I've been there ever since, basically.
So tell us all a little bit about Embryo Angling Habitats then, because I think some of the audience will know a bit about Embryo. Some people won't. Obviously it's an offshoot, so to speak, of Corder. So do you want to tell us a bit of the background and where it came from and what it's about?
So it started in 2014. So as you say, it's sort of backed by Corder. So it was Danny's sort of way of putting something back into angling, really. Obviously, he's made his millions, and he's lives a very great lifestyle, even though he's still very hands-on. But this was a way to put something back into angling. One side of the organisation is managing fisheries, our own syndicates, and everything else. But the other side was to also protect lakes from predation. So I mean, I don't know how many sort of fences we've done, but it's a lot. I mean,
there are, I think, dozens of venues that have been fenced by Embryo, either fully funded or partially funded.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, the fully funded, is definitely sort of maybe near the sort of 15-20 mark. So that was literally like completely paid by ourselves. And then numerous other ones which sort of like subsidised sort of costing and everything else. But
And these are all obviously not non-embryo venues, essentially. These
Yeah,
are non-embryo lakes, because obviously, and we touched on this earlier, and I'm not throwing you under a bus or anything, because it's nothing you haven't heard before. But there's always this, this thought or this accusation from anglers that embryo is just designed to take over fishing. Much like kind of Corda did with the tackle market. It's the biggest player in the UK tackle market, and the same with Guru, obviously on the match side of the company. Embryo was designed for essentially for Corda to have all the lakes as well. But, when you look at a company that's paid in full for Otter Fence 15 to 20 venues, subsidised a load of others, that's clearly not true.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be certain people who, I've seen it over the years. I've seen it, comments online and say, "Oh, this is just some great big money making scheme and everything else." And sitting, obviously being there and seeing the finance and everything else. Dan's put in probably near enough 10 million of his own money into Embryo. And
I mean, for those of us that are in the industry and kind of know the people involved in that as well, Danny very much is the type of person. I mean, it's a bit of that kind of Elon Musk side of things, incredibly wealthy from their hard work, but still sleeps on a sofa, works all the time, still really passionate about what they do, still interested. I mean, I know for a fact, having sat with Danny a couple of years ago, like Danny is still obsessed with how a swivel works. He's still, really passionately, trying to make that extra edge in the sport. A hook sharper, a rig more, more effective, and the same with fisheries.
Yeah, precisely. You've hit the nail on the head. Yeah, it is exactly like that. He was in the office today till 5:20, and everyone goes home at 5. So it's a bit like
wave out the door and leave him in the dark kind of thing.
Yeah, no, he's he is very hands-on. Even now, when he probably doesn't really need to be either. So
yeah, I mean, that passion obviously always comes through when you speak to people. You can always see passion. You can see when their eyes are kind of glazed and they're staring into the future rather than talking to you. And it's really clear to see. So, I mean, I'm certainly from my memory, Embryo started with the fencing. Initially started off with the fencing side of Embryo, and the venues was kind of secondary. Am I right about that, or is it?
Yeah, I think it was very much. I think it was very much a 50-50 mix, to be honest, because I think maybe the first few years the fencing maybe took over slightly, just simply because I think trying to obtain venues was
it's
pretty
quicker to implement, isn't it? You can go build some fences tomorrow, can't you? But actually building venues.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to obtain venues the first few years because no one knew who you were. Obviously, that predates when I joined in 2018. Yeah. But I remember Matt Pettit, who runs Embryo. I remember him always saying that the first few years it's always difficult to try and get people to sort of take you on, like landowners and everything else. But
obviously, it's a very new thing. There aren't many businesses around the country who are looking to buy random venues up and down England. It's usually locally people that you knew, or landowners that you knew, or farmers that you knew. And this, strange new idea of this national kind of entity looking to take on venues. And I assume, and how much involvement you have in this, I don't know, but I assume it's probably got easier because reputationally people know what Embryo are going to do. They know what an embryo conversation is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say it definitely has got easier from my own experience in sort of obtaining venues or anything like that. Obviously, you start to build a portfolio, and then over the years, that sort of speaks for itself eventually, and we learn things along the way, and I think eventually it does certainly help towards obtaining.
So what were the first venues? What were the first few Embryo venues? Were they syndicates?
Yes, so a majority of them were syndicate. I'm trying to think I think our first day ticket, I think it may have been Norton Disney, which we purchased. No, I'll have to have a fact check on that. But
so it's like overwhelmingly, it was the syndicate lakes first.
Yeah,
what were the early ones? What were
the first one was South Ings, so up in sort of East Hull. So that was the first ever one. So that was, it was the 10th year anniversary last year. So yeah, we've had them lakes for 11 years.
over 10 years now of kind of Embryo Angling Habitats, and we're now talking, I mean, I know that from what we run, obviously it's about 25 syndicates, and then there are obviously the day ticket UK venues, and then the European venues now are taking off more and more. Obviously probably the biggest focus in new business now is the European bookings as well. And obviously Norton Disney is a behemoth, but Norton Disney is a massive raging success. It's sold out day in, day out, every week kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about the growth, where it came from the early days of a few syndicates to kind of where it is now.
I mean, when I started, I think it was somewhere between, I don't think we had over 10 venues, to be honest. And obviously since then, it's sort of in 8 years, it's almost quadrupled. Without I'm trying to sort of estimate how many we've got in total, but it's got to be near the 40 mark, I imagine, in terms of total lakes. I mean, there's some even now I can't sort of talk about at the moment because there's
secret squirrel venues.
Yeah. Well, hopefully to be revealed at some point this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, nice. So was there a stage, obviously, since you joined, was there a kind of kick-on stage? Was there a stage where it accelerated, or has it been steady kind of increase in number of venues over that time?
Not that there wasn't a point where, well, actually, no, there was a point, maybe probably around sort of the Norton Disney era and a little bit after that, where we were sort of actively looking for venues. So, I mean, I guess sort of Norton Disney was a bit of a landmark for that. And then sort of the last couple of years, I mean, unless something really spectacular comes up, and we've got our hands full enough at the moment. So it's and that sort of indicates the growth of sort of where it's been at.
I mean, all the venues are busy. Obviously, I can see a lot of the syndicate venues, and obviously Norton Disney sells itself. It's full all the time. Obviously, you've got the site at Baston, which is rapidly expanding to be kind of the new Norton Disney number 2, so to speak. It's a new kind of multi-lake complex with a combination of syndicate and day ticket and exclusive booking venues. So let's bring it all back again to Mr. Ryan Shaw. So what is your job title, and what do you do day to day at Embryo Angling Habitats?
Okay, so it varies, but my actual job title is the sort of Embryo Office Manager. So sort of, which, although I am office based, it's still an element of that is ensuring that our sort of day-to-day teams, a lot of them are out on the banks, visiting the fishery managers and everything else, to ensure that they sort of have a smooth day, and anything they need I can do from the office, and hopefully I can help them. But obviously a major part of this is I manage the memberships for Embryo, and yeah, it is only me who does that. So come sort of February to July, that is sort of full on. That is full on memberships, trying to sort out sort of 25 syndicates in ready.
Thankfully, there are some businesses out there that help you with handy tools to manage membership. So it's really useful. Obviously, I know when we first started, obviously working together, when we had those first conversations, I know from experience how hard it is to run a syndicate, let alone 25 all over the country. That you couldn't possibly go to. You can't possibly go to 25 venues and sit at a little table and take cash, for every single member. And it's challenging enough for individual syndicates, and for the people who are on the call tonight, it's hard enough to run a club at one place, in one location. But managing not only 25 syndicates with, full of members of different sizes and different categories and pricing and all those kind of different options. But then, like you say, it's the fishery managers. You've got fishery managers per site or per group of local sites. And then you've got all of the volunteer fishery bailiffs, which all need their own level of management, all need kind of speaking to and dealing with and catching up with. So it's a logistically very large job. And if it's just you that does most of it, which I know it is, that's a great deal of work. So how was that before Clubmate? Let's start with that part. How was that, back in the paper world?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like before I go to, I'd just like to add that although so my sort of role in the office, I am very much the computer guy in that sense. But yeah, obviously we have a lot of volunteer bailiffs and fishery managers as well. So although I run the memberships in sort of digital terms and the ones who sort of make sure the memberships go out, they are very much the guys who run it on a day-to-day and very hands-on. So
I mean, obviously I visit quite a few of your venues. There's loads of fishery managers that are really passionate about running their sites, you know, that are managing them really well. I've got to admit, from visiting several, they're always impeccable. You know, they're always incredibly well managed, incredibly clean. Everything runs really smoothly. And it's a proper kind of, and I think this is what you're going to get with Embryo. It's what you might call a Rolls Royce experience. You know, you're not just rock up to a lake covered in trees and have to dig your way through the bushes. It is a great experience to go to an Embryo venue. So all power to the bailiffs, you know, especially the volunteers that put so much time in, and all the fishery managers that do such a great job on the ground. But as you've said, it's your job to kind of manage the processes from the office. And to manage, you know, selling memberships and renewing memberships and the rest of it from the office. So tell us about how kind of that was, you know, when you started. And you've pretty much been doing that since that's like your role since the start, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I was effectively brought in to be sort of the memberships guy to ensure that they, you know, all our members get everything on time and everything else, as well as other admin stuff. But yeah, so when I started, everything was paper. We have paper application forms, and you know, every membership, every person had to send in an envelope, a stamped addressed envelope. So when we sent all memberships out, we then send a little laminated card, you know, just like most other fisheries used to do, I imagine.
I think would really surprise a lot of people to think, although they all do it themselves, you know, although clubs and, you know, fisheries are doing it, I think they would be really surprised to find that Embryo would essentially doing the same thing, but much larger, you know, for 25 different lakes around the country. Behind the scenes, it was exactly the same process, you know, paper application forms, a paper membership card, you know, given the logistics and how large it was, although you probably didn't really have many other options at the time, they probably think, I can't believe there isn't a kind of, you know, more automated option that's being used there. Did you find it quite challenging?
Oh, sorry, I'll just see.
Oh, Andrew's got his hand up. Go ahead, Andrew. You got a question?
Yeah. Sorry if I've missed something. So does somebody join Embryo Angling, or does somebody join Norton Disney, for example? Is it?
Well, Norton Disney's a day ticket site, so you just turn up at Norton and you just, you know, you just fish. Now, am I right in thinking, certainly at the moment, Ryan, you still just turn up at Norton Disney and book a day ticket? There's no booking date at Norton, is there?
No. So Norton. So we use Clubmate for our syndicate, so our memberships only. Norton Disney is a completely different sort of entity. It's a day ticket complex in Lincoln. So no membership is required. You literally turn up on the day. You pay at the lodge, and then you go fishing. So
is Embryo Angling Habitats, is that a club membership then, or is it just a management for the series?
No, so it's per site, so you have to choose to join a specific Embryo syndicate.
Right.
So Ryan manages essentially, is it 25 or is it 24, or I can't remember exactly how many it is now, Ryan. But
I don't know how many syndicates.
It's kind of add one, take one, kind of move one around in it. But you still have to join like you would any other individual syndicate, but they're all kind of owned and managed by Embryo centrally, kind of thing. So it's not. It'd be a lot simpler if Ryan just managed someone who joined Embryo syndicate as a whole, and it'd probably be astronomically expensive. It'd be really easy because no one would pay it, because it'd be about 10 grand a year. But no, you still join your local individual syndicate. Well, you doesn't have to be local, but your syndicate. But these are all managed and owned by Embryo, and Ryan manages that centrally. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I suppose the way if you want to look at it is that we sort of, the syndicates are sort of 24 individual or 25 individual clubs. So essentially we'd have 25 individual Clubmate pages for each of these venues, essentially. So
and obviously one of the challenges there, Ryan, is that due to various factors like geography or the size of fish or how big the lake is, they're all different prices. You know, they're all different prices. They're all different, some of them different seasons, although I think we're looking to align that at some point into the same ticket times. There's only one or two in there, I think, that are on a kind of offset calendar, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, there is. I can't actually remember the reason behind that, to be honest. But I think
someone made it your problem.
Yeah,
But you know, they're all different prices. They're all different, varying by size. You know, depending on how good the fishery is. They're anywhere from a couple of hundred to many hundreds of pounds a year, depending on the value. You know, how big the fish are, 40s and 50s, and all the rest of it. And obviously, that makes it even more difficult because we're not talking about a standardised ticket or a standardised price across the country. So they all need managing slightly differently, and they all have slightly different levels of popularity, Ryan, as well. Do you find, so where is most of the data? You know, when you're talking to these members, how many are we talking for those 25 sites? You don't have to be exact. It's not a test, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, no.
Give
So
people an idea of scale across those 25 national syndicates, kind of thing.
yeah, in total, I think there's got to be sort of between 1,500 to 1,750. I think sort of a spread across, and yeah, as you were saying, they sort of all vary. We you know we have lakes where people are joining specifically just to catch one fish, you know, one specific fish, and then we've got other lakes which sort of cater for the sort of the less hardcore angler as such, and you know just want to go fishing to catch anything they can.
Kind of bite, so you might call it a runs water as such, but you know it's just good for.
I didn't want to use that term, but
I'll use it, mate. I don't mind. But you know, essentially, you're there to get a few bites and have a good time. It's not about the kind of you know, days on end, hardcore wait for one fish type.
Yeah,
you do a whole season for one bite type venue.
Yeah, well, we do really have a bit of everything, which ultimately, I guess, is part of the goal. You know, I don't think you want to have 25 venues where exactly the same.
So that was very kind of, you know, I don't know how much you're involved in new sites and things like that, but is that a very targeted goal, is to spread the offering, essentially, to have different types of fishing across them all? Or obviously a certain amount of it comes down to what comes into you know, what's available, you know what you've got and where it is. But is there a targeted goal to say we do like to cover the bases of it?
I wouldn't say there was a targeted. So I wouldn't say we was targeting areas where we haven't got some as such, but we would be conscious of not having too many in one area, if that makes sense. So I mean, as you know, we've got quite a few lakes in sort of the Cambridge, Peterborough area, and yeah, so
it's like having too many supermarkets, isn't it? Eventually, you know, the market shares, you filled the market share, and you're just going to divide your members across different venues. Yeah,
exactly that. And as I said earlier, I mean, if something, we're not really actively looking anymore, but if something really special did come up in anywhere, you know, anywhere in sort of England or the UK, then we'd always consider it. It's not necessarily where it is, but obviously if it's in a sort of a great fishing area, then that's always a bonus, I suppose. But it all depends. It all depends on the lake and the situation and everything else, really.
I mean, the nature of our sport, you know, nothing's that predictable. You never quite know what the next step is. Obviously, you've got your key areas. Obviously, the Nene Valley's always been famously known for carp fisheries and things like that. And the same as, you know, the Essex area. You know, Essex is quite dense with water as well. So there are key areas of the country where there's a kind of big audience. 2 seconds. Get my mouse going. Someone's just joining us. Yeah, there are key areas where there is a big audience, but obviously you never know if something special is going to come up. People will travel for that one special fish that we spoke about. I mean, I know people, you'll know them as well, Ryan. You know, I know people that used to drive nearly 2 hours to bait up. You know, they'll drive nearly 2 hours to put a bucket of bait in and go home, and they'll fish it once every 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, nature of angling is many things to many people, and Embryo's got a lot to offer for many different people. You know, there are different levels from, like you say, your bites water where you guarantee nearly a fish, you know, if you go all the way up to those really rock hard venues where it's about achieving the impossible, you know, catching the impossible, as what someone once said, you know, catching that special fish of a lifetime.
Yeah.
So let's go back, and eventually we're going to have to talk about Clubmate, but let's talk about that paper world. Obviously, when you've joined Clubmate, you started using the Clubmate software to manage it, and obviously there's a reason for that. So
yeah,
what was the challenges? Obviously, as you got more and more venues, it seems obvious that the challenges are it starts to become too much to manage on paper.
Yeah. So just to give a bit of context behind that, so we was paper, and I think it was during COVID where I was essentially working from home and everything else, and the whole paper option wasn't an option for me. So we I've sort of created my own sort of digital version where I was, instead of doing everything paper, I was then creating digital cards instead. So sort of halfway between sort of.
Yeah. It's not like knocking something up on paint.
No,
you know, you should like
I mean, yeah, no. So, but I was still having to physically do each card on like I was using like InDesign, so Adobe InDesign. So I was doing it all like that. So it was still a sort of manual process as such, but it wasn't sort of paper related anymore. But then obviously, as time's gone on since sort of, when was that, 2020, 21, again, we just keep sort of growing, and then even that sort of process sort of starts to get out of hand, really. Like, it just takes a very time consuming, you know.
If you're talking taking payments over the phone with like a PDQ, or you're taking bank transfers, that's a very long and arduous process when each person wants to, you know, probably, and I'm talking easily 10-15 minutes per person. You know, chatting to them on the phone and taking their bank details. I mean, technically speaking, you shouldn't get someone to read their bank details over the phone. You know, they're not supposed to read out loud their card number to you. You know, the world's don't worry too much. They're not going to come knock your door down, Ryan, but they're changing regulations on this so that it's no longer kind of compliant to read out loud your card numbers over the phone and things like that. Because
that didn't happen then, Rob. So.
No, that has changed. There's been a lot of changes, I think, post-COVID, to be fair, where they're looking at. I mean, we've got to the stage with Clubmate now where we've removed the ability to just type people's card numbers in, because that person shouldn't be giving you their card to type it in. So these are vastly changing over time, because you shouldn't just be handing around your personal bank details. But don't worry, you're not getting arrested. There was nothing wrong with it at the time, Ryan. It was accepted practice, but it's a very time-consuming process that you're talking 10, 15, 20 minutes per angler. Most of them want to have a conversation as well about how it's fishing. As you mentioned earlier, 1,1700 members nationally at even 10 minutes per person. We're talking into the many thousands of minutes, you know. And some of the people on the calls from clubs, if you can imagine your club and you had to do all of those on the phone, and then we talk about 1,800 people around the country that you've never met at different lakes all over the place, and they're all at a different price. Obviously, there comes a need to look at a different solution. And then along came Clubmate, Ryan. How did that go for you? What was it like? You know, what was the initial, you know, thoughts, and how has it gone from there?
Yeah, I mean, I believe we spoke to you guys. I think it was before you was there, actually, Rob. I think we spoke to you a couple of years earlier, because we were looking to.
Yeah, I think there was an initial conversation. Probably it was probably over a year, well over a year, probably even the year to 2 years before I joined. There was there was a first kind of flirtation. There was a first conversation as to what we can do, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess at the time it was whether about we could sort of justify the move from our side and everything else, and obviously we spoke to you again, and then obviously since then, I think even within 2 or 3 years after that, when, you know, Clubmate had come on leaps and bounds, really, like with some of the features that you had and everything else. You know, obviously we used the signing in and out feature that you guys implemented. So part of our syndicate rules is that we like to know who's on the lake at all times. So whereas before people used to sign in at the shed, just sign a name in, so when the bailiff came around they knew it was on. But now obviously you can sign in via Clubmate, and then the bailiffs can now see who is in the lake in real time, and they can do it from sitting on their sofa. So
yeah, I mean, obviously it's a matter of liveness, so to speak. That book's only as good as the people that are stood next to it reading it. And writing in it. You know, firstly, the members writing in it, and secondly, it's only as good as the person that drives there and reads it. With the check-in system that you guys are using, which I think we probably didn't exploit as early, you know, in the first conversations. You can literally see it from your sofa. You can see it from the office. The local bailiff can see it from his sofa, and if no one's on, there's no real need for him to go to the fishery unless he's going to go check anyway. But there's no anglers to kind of deal with. And you can start tracking your busy and your quiet times. You know, you can see when's busy and when's not when you start digging into the data. And to be honest, I'll be entirely transparent on this recorded call, and I'll probably lose my job, but I don't think we sold ourselves well enough. I don't think there was probably a good enough understanding of the carp market. I don't think, Clubmate, again, you were talking about Clubmate being very focused on angling clubs for several years. I don't think we understood what the carp market wanted differently to the club market, and what the differences in the user journey is, and what the differences in what people are looking in. Obviously, we recruited more carp anglers as sort of people that understood carp fishing. Some of it myself, but other members of the team that understand carp fishing more than as much as they understand club fishing.
Yeah, no, maybe you're right. I mean, I think it was. I mean, I'm trying to think back now, but I think definitely with the sort of the reason for the switch, I think obviously everything what you guys do are great, and I think it was the added, it was the added element of it, being able to incorporate our signing in and signing out process, like the catch reports, and obviously being able to export that data. Everything was sort of a part of my day to day, being able to do from sort of one screen essentially, instead of having to do bit parts and go back to it. So
I mean, obviously we support you with the catch reporting kind of stuff as well, and I know there is a vast amount of catch reports coming across your syndicates. It's a lot of volume. There's a lot of catch reports come flying in from Embryo syndicate venues, and I don't count them or take much notice of what's in them, but we get notified when people fill these kind of things in. And it's a lot of data. If you actually thought back to it's one guy collecting that from across all of your fisheries, and although catch reporting is not essential to fishing, it's not successful to people going fishing, buying tickets or things like that, it's obviously really important data, especially with what you guys are doing at Embryo. The success of fisheries needs to be measured. You need to measure what's successful and what isn't, and where the fish are coming out and when they're coming out. And it is I imagine you guys look into it more than we do, but you've got a lot of reporting data there from even the catch reports.
Yeah, it's all a part of our process, really. The catch reports, the signing in data sort of go hand in hand. We want to know if our venues are way too busy, and if they are, the following year we would then reduce the memberships. And if likewise, if they're really quiet, if we're only getting one angler fishing a week, then clearly there's room to up the membership, and then and make it a little bit busier. So
there's a really simple term which I don't think it's probably kind of disingenuous in its simplicity, is fishery success. Now, fishery success is a very simple 2 words, but it means a lot of things. It's how long it takes. Amount of rod hours per fish is a key metric. How long does it take an angler to catch a fish? How many anglers are on the bank? When are they on the bank? What days are they fishing? And all of these things, catch returns combined with attendance reports, combined with everything else, tell you about fishery success as a term. And there is some really complicated maths behind those 2 words that say this lake is successful. And obviously, I'd like to think that most of the data that would fill in that formula you can get from Clubmate.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a few sort of tweaks that, not necessarily from yourself, but even from the membership side. Like, some members still send pictures in via email, which obviously is a little bit of an issue, because if they don't do it for the catch report on Clubmate, then it sort of muddles up with the data as such. But that's something from our end. That's obviously not Clubmate's problem, but
it's a growing world. We say to many people all the time, as I said to you, I did a demo before I'm speaking to you tonight. You've got to let some people ease into this, and we're in that kind of massive transitional period of digital upskilling, all the way down to the angler at the smallest club, to the biggest fishery, to fishery managers, to people like yourself. We've moved really quickly since COVID, and for all the terrible parts of COVID, the one thing it did do was digitally advance the world a lot quicker than it would have done. Remote sales and remote platforms and cloud-based platforms, and it moved the world on dramatically fast. And since then, it's been a snowball. And I think in the last 2 years, I think people's ability to use these platforms has advanced rapidly in all age categories, right the way up. And obviously, every question we get is about, we've got a lot of older generation anglers who might struggle with technology, and it's just less and less so. I think often it's a fear rather than the truth, rather than a reality. It's a fear that the older generation will struggle, and I find it's become easier and easier. And I think in the next 2 years, it will probably be nearly non-existent. And I think in 5 to 10, we'll forget that anyone ever struggled to use, online platforms. So would you say overall, Ryan, that Clubmate has been a success?
Yes.
Don't think too long.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be sitting here now if it wasn't. I think we'd be having conversations behind the scenes if it was going, if it weren't going too well. But yeah, I mean, as you say, look, it's had a great impact on my sort of, well, on all of our sort of working lives in the office. More specifically me, because I'm the one who sort of manages the memberships, but that's also enabled me to, it's sort of freed up time to do other stuff. So I have a sort of hand in sort of looking for venues, which we talked about earlier. Also, part of this, we do a lot of planning, because lakes such as our day tickets, you have to sort of get planning permissions for some stuff, like change of use of venues and everything else. Even drafting documents to send to landowners and everything else. All that was sort of done on limited time before, whereas now, since this has come in, and it's taken the sort of time down to do memberships drastically. And yeah.
And I think that's probably only going to reduce each year as well, Ryan. Obviously, you've gone through one kind of period of membership and renewals. I think each year the lessons are learned not only by the members but by yourselves, and we'll find newer ways of doing things. As you know, we've made changes based on what you guys are looking for and what the other clubs are looking for. We're always open to questions and new suggestions, and I think it will probably save more and more time for you each year. Just as a bit of a brief view, I've just hopped over to one of the Embryo sites. I won't show you anything kind of member based. I'm obviously not going to share any member data, but this is what an Embryo kind of site looks like. This is as easy as it is for Ryan to transfer himself to any of his sites. He just has to move to whichever site he wants to manage at the time.
You can change the profile pictures.
Yeah, you can make them a bit nicer. You can give us a gallery of all of your sites, couldn't you? But and a lot of the things, obviously, that Embryo have got in their member area here are things that I've recommended to some of the other clubs and fisheries to do with their sites, because it's about a lot more than buying a ticket once a year. And as you can see from the Embryo sites here, you've got your sign in, sign out button where those members can check in when they're at the fishery. You got your member information about the specific site. Each one of the Embryo venues has got its own bespoke fishery map. So if we hop through here, there's a fishery map for each one, and you can zoom in on these in a high quality version and see the ins and outs of a specific venue and its pegs. Embryo story, catch reports, which obviously we spoke about. So every member on an Embryo venue can quite simply and easily just fill in their venue here. And if it's a multi-lake complex, you see we've got Broom Big and Broom Blue here. You can choose which lake you're on, add the size of your fish in your pictures, and just submit your pictures from there. And one of the things that's really important these days is consent for things like this. And there is a consent checkbox option to give consent to use these images for media and things like that. Obviously, it's become more and more of a thing in the modern era, is media consent and the consent to use people's images. So you can give consent through there. And then there are links through to the other venues that Embryo manage, including ones that we don't use, the ones that we don't manage, because it's all about supporting the business. So you can go through to the day ticket venues, and you can look at the fencing services. One of the handy features, and I saw that you had one today, Ryan, was the report an incident feature. I saw that there was one came in today.
What's it?
Ryan's looking surprised because he hasn't responded. So someone's probably on fire somewhere.
I didn't see would that come through via email, would it?
It would, but don't panic too badly, Ryan. It was about a snag in a lake, so it's not something that's going to ruin anyone's life straight away.
Usually, I'm going to have a look at my emails now, actually. So I'm going to call you out on this, Rob. See how.
I mean, I know it's there. It just depends whether it's in your inbox, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing it.
But members can quickly and easily report an incident on a site. They can put a time in there and tell us what they've seen. And obviously this varies massively from, obviously I've just given an example there of there's a snag in one of the pegs, which probably needs dealing with at some point. But perhaps not at Embryo, but at other sites, we've had people report fires, break-ins, dead animals, animals in distress. And this notifies, hopefully if they read it, fishery managers and bailiffs straight away.
Yeah, I'll have to find out. Which lake was it?
Now you're putting me back on the spot.
Oh, there
So
we
let
go.
me have you got it?
No, I still can't. I can't find the.
Let me find it. I saw it earlier, Ryan. I'll have a look live for you. Don't worry, I'll manage your fisheries for you, mate. Don't you worry.
Thank you very much.
It was at Corcuts, mate.
Oh wow, that's surprising.
Well,
I'll have a look at
have a
that.
dig through. You go get that snag out, mate. You sort it out. But there are additional features like that, and much like we recommended on the other sites, you can link your socials in there. And we've even got a link through to the Corda clothing. So if you want to, you can go buy some Corda clothing, just like the one I'm wearing today. I've got my Corda t-shirt on as we speak, in celebration of Ryan. So Ryan, do you want to tell us, before we drop to any questions, do you want to tell us what's the future of Embryo Angling Habitats and what's the future for Ryan Shaw?
That's a very difficult question to answer, Rob. I mean, we're just continuing to sort of carry on, really. As I said, that we have got a couple of very exciting venues coming up, which I can't disclose at the moment. But when they do come out in the open, I don't know if you know about them actually, but very exciting place.
I will do tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah, it's just to sort of carry on and.
I mean, I genuinely think that Embryo's got a job on its hands to keep up with its own success at the moment. You know, the venues have been rampantly busy and really successful, and it's a case of just really, I suppose, maximising the potential that you've got at the moment, because the places are so successful. You've got to keep making them better and making the processes work and making sure the anglers are happy. I think you've got enough venues and enough work at those venues to just, you know, sit there and just make sure they're all as good as they possibly can be.
Yeah, I think if you asked anyone at the moment at Embryo, like what the sort of future holds, I think they'd just be like, well, we'll just try and manage the ones that we've already got at the moment.
Take a breath kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, our sort of newest sort of ventures out in Europe will obviously bring their own challenges, because you know, we take the bookings over here via the website, but then obviously you get in sort of a multitude of people from different countries and everything else, which some of them don't speak English, so you're having to
got language barriers and support.
Yeah, so
they want to ring you at a different time of day.
Yeah, well, I don't really deal with, well, I don't at all. I don't really deal with the sort of European stuff, but my colleague Rob does, and yeah, there's been times he's having to Google Translate like responses and everything else. So like, I guess one thing that I guess if you want to say about the future is really trying to narrow down the European stuff, so it's sort of like a nice and smooth transition. But even over here, there's so much going on. It's, you know, we're just trying to make things the best as they can with what we've got at the moment, really. So and that is sort of how we're sort of moving forward, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, as I say firsthand, it's a really enjoyable experience going to an Embryo venue, and obviously the work has paid off, because when you go, great place to be, really nice swims, really nice environment, great fishery managers, really knowledgeable fishery managers that are great anglers themselves, and you know, we all know that you're a great angler, Ryan, and a golfer and a guitarist. Yeah,
well, I try. I haven't been fishing that much lately, but yeah, golf has taken over. The guitar's probably taking a bit of a step back. I see was there a question? Just
there is a question. The question essentially was: are Embryo carp only venues? Essentially, are they carp fisheries only? The answer to that currently is yes, I believe, isn't it, Ryan?
To a degree, yeah. So obviously, it was all created by Dan, and his love is carp fishing. So his idea was to have sort of carp fisheries, and that's what it was. But obviously with that, we have got a lot of silvers and other species, and you know, we do have lakes where we sell pike tickets and everything else. We also have the Embryo family fishing side, which we probably haven't got enough time to go into now, but that's another sort of bit part of Embryo, where we encourage kids to come to various lakes which we have, which are sort of mixed fisheries as such. But
yes, I mean, it's a completely other side of the business with the Embryo family fishing. You've got like Kiverton as an example, but they're geared towards mostly silverfish fishing, you know, for the kids, and there's loads of junior events on those. They're fantastic waters as well, kind of another whole thing that Embryo are doing, lots of the kids stuff. and obviously hand in hand with Embryo Family Fishing, hand in hand with like the Guru Match Academy to develop juniors.
Exactly.
There are some of the syndicates, obviously, where we sell pike tickets, winter tickets for pike angling and things such as that. Maybe one day there will be an appetite to open embryo lakes that are more mixed fisheries, maybe, tench and bream that are all very popular in certain areas. I'm sure there's, once you've completed carp fishing, which I don't think you can be further, there aren't many as close to completing carp fishing as embryo and cauda, I don't think. But maybe once you've done that, there's a whole new world of challenges in other venues.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what that sort of holds in the future. But yeah, I mean, if it's fair to say that Dan's love is carp fishing, is his train set, and that is the reason why we predominantly have carp balls. But it's not necessarily mean that you can't do any other form of fishing. We know we do have like, big species in all the lakes. They're all still in there, and people do join specifically to try and fish for them. So
I think sometimes, and especially. And I'd like to think that online platforms make this more accessible, but it's not the usual behaviour to buy tickets for other species. Those other species, when they are big, those tench waters, bream, it's rare that that's like a syndicate ticket, which is maybe something that could change, I think. Because I don't think they've, and for some reason, I mean, we all know what the industry's like. I sometimes don't think they're valued enough. I don't think, someone, would you be successful if you had a tench only venue, for example, a primarily tench syndicate? If you had a tench lake, would you be very successful if you tried to sell it at a syndicate price? Who knows?
I mean,
Linear does well for tench, obviously, places like that. But
yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I know we have talked about it in the past about having a specific tench lake. I can't remember why it never happened, but we have talked about it in the past. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess until someone does it, I mean, there probably are clubs out there which have sort of tench only memberships. I mean, I'm sure it is.
I think it's just the wider. I mean, I manage a lake for a friend of mine, and it is primarily a tench lake. It's 90% tench. But from that experience myself, I know it's a little bit of a hard sell at like a syndicate price, a price because I mean, you can't ignore the other species and just charge less because it's tench. You've still got to cover the costs. You've still got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I just think it's the recognition of other species being syndicated like carp are, if you know what I mean. But we'll see what the future holds. Andrew's got his hands up. Andrew, question.
Yeah, it's for both of you really, and this is probably quite a lot to do with my fault, but I find it very frustrating to get through to the committee and sort of to the membership just what Clubmate can offer, because it's sort of from the membership point of view and the committee point of view, it just makes Andrew's membership job easier, where there's so much more that it can do. And if basically got any advice on how to sort of push it really to an individual club.
It's a tough one, isn't it, Ryan? Because
my wife's just said beat them, but that's not going to work.
Yeah, just sack the bloody lot of them, to be honest, Andrew. But, there's a tough conversation because one could possibly say with Ryan that it was a kind of investment in Ryan to play Clubmate. When Embryo wanted to transition to an easier process, there was a case of like what makes Ryan's life easier. To make Embryo more successful. I'm not saying they're just paying to make Ryan's life easier, but to make Embryo more successful, how can we help Ryan? So I think I don't know if Ryan's got an answer he can think of to that question, but how do you go from with the business, or I need to make life easier with some kind of tool or process, to then there's a lot of things it can do that I didn't realize it could do, and we can keep expanding this, because I think it is probably more challenging for clubs, because to an extent, Ryan, you are the nominal head of running Embryo, I would say, running the kind of day-to-day syndicate management, so you can make a decision and just roll with it, whereas the clubs are always bound by that committee model where you've got to convince 10 other people.
I mean, obviously being a part of clubs myself, I know sort of how I know you're talking about sort of AGMs and everything else and the processes. So I know, whereas as you say, because I manage the membership, so I can just sort of make these. I can speak to a colleague and we can sort of make these decisions. I guess the only thing I would say is trying to persuade people, it's just to if what it benefits to. It depends on what the club does. I would say for us, as I say, the added features of the signing in, and the extracting of the data. And if it wasn't just the fact that it made the membership process smoother, also in theory should make the members themselves have a more user-friendly experience with their membership. I sort of describe it as having the membership at your fingertips when you download the app. And I guess it's I would just try and use that really. If
I'll give you a sentence that I kind of heard last year, or I don't know whether I heard it or kind of made it, or some kind of combination of both, Andrew.
Yeah.
But people don't buy features, they buy feelings. So when you're selling to people, you don't sell features, you sell feelings. So if you talk to someone about a feature, they don't know what it is, Andrew. You can describe it to them, you might as well be describing black magic. Because they don't know the technical terms for what we're using in many cases. They don't really know how it works. You describe, and when I say feelings, I mean kind of results. How does it make the club more successful? How does it make people happier to use that feature? Some of it, I think, will come down to just doing one at a time. Is a very much, and I know that you're really passionate, and not only about our platform but about your club and driving it forward. There's a temptation to try and use the whole sweet box, use the whole toolkit and add 10 tools, but it maybe is a case of don't diversify too much for fear of doing half of them half as well, kind of thing. Do one real good addition to the club this year. As I think Embryo have done. We started with the memberships and renewals initially, and then it's the signing in stuff, and we took it easy and then added the signing in stuff and QR codes to on site to sign in. And the catch reporting, and then obviously we're probably going to be moving into taking the waiting list kind of stuff, and then who knows what the future holds, but just add one feature to Penrith after the AGM this year, because I think it's too big a job for you to maybe go to that AGM and talk about 10 features. So pick the one you think makes those best feelings, the one that kind of you think will give the best feeling to the club in terms of success, and say, this is the one I'm going to champion this year. And if you do it one at a time, you'll probably, you'll convince them. But also, if the first one's really, really successful, the next one, they'll just say, yep, just do it. There will be less questioning because they'll have faith in the process and the platforms. You think so, Ryan? You think that kind of sounds about right?
Yeah, well, you sold it to me, so
Ryan's got his wallet out and he's buying a ticket for Penrith, and
I guess so. I mean, it's I suppose it's difficult without knowing the sort of background of the club and everything else, but I can only go by my own experience with. I sort of broached it to one of to a friend of mine who's the membership secretary, and although he's all for it, there's obviously sort of 10 other people in the committee who probably aren't too sure about it. So it's I
mean, it's really normal, and this is meant in no way disparaging. Look at the camera to the people watching tonight, but we often get rejected by people that have never seen it. Because we'll demonstrate to some really passionate people on a demo, like a call like this or a demo of the platform. They'll be really blown away by the available features on option. They have to take it back to a committee who vote no because they've never seen the platform, have no idea what they're saying no to, no idea what, and they're not invested as, like, you're obviously running the membership, Ryan, Andrew, you manage a lot of the the Penrith stuff. The people saying no aren't the ones who are spending 30 hours a week on it. They're not spending their evenings and their free time managing all the members. They're not saying no to anything that changes their day. And that's one of the big challenges we have, and I would love to be able to scream at people, I promise I can save you hundreds of pounds and hundreds of hours, and there is no downside to this platform, and you're saying no more out of kind of fear or lack of knowledge or not quite understanding how much this could save your life. I spoke to one of our fisheries this week, and it's an angling club of mixed background. It's got some carp lakes, some tench lakes, some silver lake, various different venues. And I did actually ask the guy, I think he's coming up to 2 years, how much has this saved you or how much has this made you? And he estimated 12 hours a week, which if you do a bit of maths is a lot of hours in a year. That's 48 hours a month. That's over 500 hours a year. And estimate turnover is revenue. I just had froze there for a second. Can you guys still see me? I'm back. You know, always
Yeah,
back
yeah,
on board. He estimated that his revenue had increased by 30%. So he's done 500 hours a year less work for a 30% increase in his sales. Just because everything's so easy and you can change a membership, sell a membership, move a membership at the touch of a button rather than 8 phone calls, 6 emails, and an application form.
I mean, that's really helpful, because I'm probably guilty trying to do too much too quickly. As you say,
completely ignoring what we do. It's always a case in life of do one thing well instead of 4 things badly, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you're trying to sell something, try and sell one thing rather than 5. Try and sell them the whole toolkit. Try and sell them a really good screwdriver, because the problem at the moment is they need a screwdriver.
Yeah.
Don't try and sell them a hammer if what they need is a screwdriver.
Yeah.
So sell that one feature, and we can talk about this in offline, Andrew. But let's find the one thing that we think is the most benefit to Penrith next year, and we'll sell that one.
Yeah.
And when I say sell, I'm not trying to sell you anything, but sell the feature to your committee.
Well, that's easy. It's a booking system for a new venue, so that's easy.
So it should be a no-brainer, especially with what Ryan said tonight about kind of checking people in.
Yeah.
Hand up from Marazian. Go ahead. You're on mute at the moment. You've still got your microphone on mute.
Hi, yeah, I support Andrew, what he's saying. Really had the same sort of problem. The committee is just technophobic, really, and I suppose I can sort of show them things on Clubmate and say this would make my life easier, but they still just think it's membership. And even though I try to persuade them that they could book their matches on there, they just still want to do it their way, and I wonder if there's a scope for like a test version, a demonstration version where people can do things without this fear of messing it up.
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, I saw you've obviously kind of put that into the chat, and I kind of saw that, and I know with Ryan especially. I mean, as Ryan knows, I've got an embryo dummy site. Essentially, it looks just like all the other embryo sites, but we can go mess around in it. I can mess around in it. If Ryan wants to look at something, I can get Ryan to mess around in it and break things or do things. There is definitely a case, and we've got demo sites that we use for demos and things such as that. There might be a case for having one, because of course my demo site, it's got to be tidy. I can't present to clubs where people have been in and messed it around.
To square
yeah. So there is a case for us having a completely separate site for absolutely anyone on a committee that wants to go in and navigate and do things and make everything free, so they don't have to pay for anything with their cards or stuff. You just make it so they can buy a membership for free. It's a really good conversation. Again, a little bit kind of out of Ryan's bag, because Ryan gets to kind of say so, without actually speaking to a colleague or two, he can essentially do what he wants. But we are talking about that age-old problem again, which I know Ryan, having been involved in clubs, has got sympathy for that model, the committee-type model. You are, and as I said to Andrew, you've got to sell feelings rather than features, because if you say to someone, "Oh, booking platform for matches," I mean, it don't make me very emotional either, to be honest. But if you say to someone, "We can," and this is the way to that one specific problem, right? And I've got really good personal experience in that. We used to do all of our matches, and we've got some really big matches. We're talking 60, 70, 80 per match, and we're talking thousands of pounds in prize money. I think in our final last year, we gave out nearly 20 grand. We used to do it all in the old-fashioned way, bits of paper and comment on Facebook if you want to fish the match and take a great big list. No one turned up. As soon as it rained, no one comes. You got 50 people booked in, and then on the day there's 5 turn up because it's raining. And the 5 that did turn up say to you, "Well, I wish I hadn't turned up, because if I'd have known I was fishing for 20p, I wouldn't have bothered." So then we moved to taking online booking of the peg fees, because of course the honest truth is you're paying transaction fees on the money, so you don't want to pay out fees you don't have to. So we started taking the peg fees online, and the pools were still paid offline. So we took whatever it was, 5, 6, 7 quid peg fees online. That wasn't enough to keep people's iron in the fire. They're still willing to lose a fiver. So if you got them to pay a fiver, they'd still not turn up if the weather was bad. And everyone loses out. The other people that turn up for the match lose out on the pool's money. And then, so then we just thought, to hell with it. We took every penny online, all of the pools, all of the prize money, and we just admitted that we're going to lose that money, transaction fees. And our attendance on matches in the following 2 years is nearly 99%, because people aren't willing to lose all that money. And when they ring you and say, sorry, mate, I can't make it because the dog ate my homework, I say, well, that's great, mate, but I've already got your pools money, so bye. That's the end of the conversation. And obviously there are circumstances where people have got individually bad problems. And I mean, sadly, like bereavements, illness, things like that. And you can perfectly well refund them. You say, yeah, no problem, not at all. But your default entry is you pay your money, you take your choice. There's no refunds. We guarantee this prize money for a match series, for example. If you are running serious, matches, you've got your pot in for the whole match series. You can guarantee the prizes, so you can advertise a better series rather than saying, I hope we've got some money at the end of it. And that's what you sell to your club. You don't sell weekend book matches, because that sounds quite dull. But when you say we can be really successful and make this much more money and fulfill all of our matches so that everyone's happy and guarantee the prize money, guarantee prize money is a much more exciting statement than this will make my life easier. So you've got to sell the parts that say, got to make it sound sexy, so to speak. You've got to make it sound like it's something that really benefits the club. I went on a bit of a kind of, I got on my soapbox there because I've done this. I've been through that side of the process myself. Anyone got any other?
It's a useful example.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like I say, it was a great transition, and it proved itself in pure maths that, after transitioning to entirely taking all of the match money, and yes, we say goodbye to the transaction fees, whatever they are, 2% of the fees. All we did was tell the anglers. We published it quite transparently when they booked the match. This percentage of the money goes to the transaction fees to take the booking. End of story. Take it out of the prize money. The cost of doing business, as they call it. And it's been hugely successful, because I'd rather lose 2% of 50 people than keep 2% out of 6 that turn up. And it's been horrendously successful. And we then pay the prize money out, because obviously you're not taking cash, so you're not giving out cash prizes. We paid out the prize money digitally by bank transfer. And then there was this kind of experiment, because we kind of started saying, well, do people still want the old envelope experience, shake hands envelopes and, cash experience at the results. So we trialed going back to it, because during COVID, obviously, as Ryan mentioned earlier, you couldn't do paper even in prize money. You couldn't hand over cash prize money. So it was all digital payments. And then we said, okay, well, our anglers missing that experience of all getting together and having a cash presentation, all that kind of thing. So we went back to it. And the overwhelming feedback was that the anglers weren't that bothered. They said, no, go back to digital. I'd rather pack up and drive home and you just send me my money. And the match organisers were happy, because they didn't have to carry around 2-3 grand in their pocket all day. They didn't have to have envelopes in their pocket all day with cash. And the anglers said, no, I'd much rather go home and you just message me and tell me you've transferred me my winnings than, hang around for 2 hours for everyone to, come back to a result. So I think it's a great one to move into, is online booking for matches, and something we rarely get used for. Anyone got any more questions for Ryan this evening? We were all good. So thank you very much, Ryan. It's been really great to hear about you and Embryo. Good luck for the future of Embryo. Obviously, we're going to be working hand in hand, so don't make that sound like a goodbye or anything.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Hopefully it was helpful to some degree. And yeah, maybe I'll come back and we'll have a bigger audience, maybe. So.
We'll get Danny next time. Don't worry about it. But thanks very much. I mean, I think it's really eye-opening for the clubs to hear that it is scalable to such a wide degree. That it adds so many tools in such a wide. For someone who has no option, you can't drive to your venues. You can't just drive down the street to where your fisheries are. So the online tools have been key to you being able to manage them better. So I think it is really, really useful, even if it is a very different type of fishing. I think it's really useful to indicate some of the solutions. But thanks very much for your time, Ryan. And thanks for everyone that joined us in the questions tonight. And we will see you all next time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Good luck.
Thank you.